Today we got Charlie Kirk. Unfortunately, we all have had the displeasure of knowing who he is and what he represents. He is one of the most prolific MAGA influencers. Feels almost wrong to say prolific, but definitely one of the more influential voices on the MAGA platform, who has lost a lot of credibility in the past few weeks. Now, most of us with common sense know that he's never had any credibility, but MAGA-tars are finally waking up to that reality. Perhaps not in the way you'd want, but Charlie Kirk has demonstrated time after time again where his loyalties stand, where his biases take him towards, and how often he lies to not only his audience, but anybody who has caught the attention of his videos. And this was his interesting rebuttal to the criticism he garnered after the Epstein Files debacle, where he claimed he would take a step back in terms of covering it, when that came with a very hostile reception.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine.
He tried to explain himself, but he often lies and contradicts himself almost instantly. Check it out right here.
And apparently, the media, who has interestingly not covered the Epstein story at all, the media that has been silent on the Epstein story, they found it so objectionable that even though they won't cover the Epstein story for 1 2-hour interval after talking about it for 40 hours this last weekend.
The media has extensively covered this issue, and the problem with this is that you're being disingenuous in the reason as to why you're being covered in this angle. The reason you're being covered in this angle is because you're a perfect demonstration of every adjacent media platform to the Trump administration and their deflection tactic, claiming now is a Democrat hoax, and you are quote-unquote stupid if you continue to press on this issue, considering all that we've done. And then you got Caroline Leavitt, the genius press secretary, continuously lying and shamelessly making up self-proclaimed wins of the Trump administration.
The president has now ended conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, and Egypt and Ethiopia. This means President Trump has brokered, on average, about one peace deal or ceasefire per month during his 6 months in office. It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
And it seems like there is no sound reasoning or consistent logic anymore when it comes to the administration or the White House. And now it seems like the adjacent medias are also interpolating their audiences into becoming used to that lack of linearity in logic. That's why you got called out, because you're a representation of that. How if they give an order, you will abide by. What the party desires, the party gets.
I'm going to read you exactly what I said. This is a total obsessive hoax, and this shows you exactly the power of this program, the contradiction of the media. Look at all those articles, and even some people are emailing me, Charlie, why are you not talking about Epstein? Why are you saying to move on? I never, ever, ever said move on, ever. I didn't whisper it. I didn't think it. I didn't say it. I am going to now read you what was said yesterday. MSNBC did an entire 7-minute segment on me this morning. And I'm looking at this thing. I said, that's not what I said. I did a special YouTube video about Epstein yesterday about what Laura Trump said on Benny Johnson's program. All we said was that we talked about it a lot over the weekend, and we're going to focus on other stories. And we talked about it a lot at the Student Action Summit, and your voices were heard. Our voices were heard. So this is what I said yesterday.
The problem with statements like this is you try to double down on the fact that you were grossly misrepresented when you, in fact, are misrepresenting what was being said about you. You continuously go on to contradict yourself in your rebuttals. Right now, you're saying you're going to trust your friends in the administration. Why are you trying to convince your audience that this administration is a glaring example, an outlier when it comes to administration and their transparency and their lack of truthfulness? They're not an outlier. They're a continuation of that, just in a different form and capacity with slightly different interests. But the same bipartisan agreements and the same bipartisan subjects that are never touched, that are never influenced, that truly will have an impact on the American people if they are assessed, they're not going to be touched. You deciding to instill faith in the administration and applying that logic to your audience when they're at the cusp of showing how far bipartisan agreements truly go and how those agendas override anything. You won't attack the administration because you don't want to lose access, because you don't want to lose your phone call away access to the administration and your tight relationships with the politicians currently in positions of power. You're not a victim and you haven't been propagandized against. You simply are exactly what you've been exposed as, a MAGA shill and MAGA tool. That's why you've been targeted, because you're a representation of that MAGA shillness and how you will deflect and divert and pledge loyalty towards the administration and cultivate your audience to do the same. But guess what? They've denied you and they've rejected you, and you've lost credibility in that regard, even from your own people.
Plenty was said this last weekend at our event about Epstein. Honestly, I'm done about talking about Epstein for the time being. Nobody, not a single news outlet said for the time being. They did not include that second part of the sentence. I'm going to trust my friends of the administration. True. I'm going to trust Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, JD Vance. It's their ball. It's their possession. I'm going to trust my friends of the government to do what needs to be done. I've said plenty this weekend, and the ball is in their hands. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine. We have escalatory action being taken in Ukraine and Russia. We have tons of announcements happening when it comes to NATO. But let me say this again. You know my opinion about Epstein, the messaging fumble. I would love to see this again. No one covered the second part of the statement. No one covered it. This thing has like 10 million views on social media.
The only thing that you deserve to be granted is the fact that that was not covered. That little piece of the quote that was left uncovered in the articles that were made about you, or in the videos that were made about you. But the problem with that is even though that it was omitted from the statements, the representation of what you're doing is still accurate. And you just double down on it right now. You said that you're going to trust your friends in the administration going forward with this subject. The ball is in their hands. The ball has always been in their hands. What are you talking about? They're the ones that created this problem. They're the ones that fucking started stating it was a hoax. And they're the ones that are completely deflecting and focusing on other shit, trying to weather down the storm. But I don't think it's going to get weathered down. I really don't think it's going to get weathered down. I don't think it's going to be forgiven by the people that were loyalists, MAGA loyalists, the adjacent centrist streamers and influencers who are now regretting their stances. Like, you got the Andrew Schultz, the Joe Rogans, the Dave Smiths, Dave Smith is more right than centrist, obviously, but still, people like that who were, on the fence about Trump, or the ones that were just more center than anything, they're regretting themselves now, and they're feeling ashamed of it now, right? But like I said, you continuously contradict yourself and you over explain new points. Like, there's really no, your insistence on them omitting that little part of the phrase is pretty irrelevant in this conversation, considering the fact that you continuously double down. You admit that, yes, the ball is in their court. You're essentially doing what you're being accused of. They're accusing you of just deflecting and trying to weather down the storm, and hey guys, let's focus on something else that's perhaps more important. That you just did that. You said you're going to trust the administration, your friends in the administration, to handle this. Ball's in their court, and you're done talking about it. But that was your big point of how you were misconstrued. You are deflecting. You're granting them amnesty, and you're granting them an extra 60-day trial. There is none. Condemn them because they're supposed to be.
And unfortunately, too many people on our side fell for this garbage. And I get it, heightened. And by the way, part of this is I'm going to have some compassion. This is a very hot moment. Very hot. And let me be clear. I'm not trusting the government. I'm trusting individuals that you too also trust. You guys are all fans of Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. We are trusting that they heard you, they heard me, and they are working to fix this. Let me finish this.
You think Americans trust politicians even if they elected them? That's not what's going on right now. They don't trust Dan Bongino. They don't trust Pam Bondi. They don't trust Kash Patel. And they don't trust the man in the office himself. The man on the self-proclaimed throne with the Superman logo attached to him. The American people will not be loyal to you. The American people are as fickle as they are stupid. I don't think they have the loyalty that you claim they think they have. And the fact that you're saying we're going to trust them is very contradictory to you saying, I'm not going to trust the government. There's not much of a distinction there to the length that you think there is. These are still the elected governmental officials, and they fell in line with the Israel politics, with the desires of the lobbyists and the hundreds and tens of millions of dollars that were invested to get them into the seats of office that they're in. They're all going to fall in line if they weren't already falling in line beforehand. So there's not this plane of loyalty that you think there is, or this plane of trust that you think that they should admit because we elected them, and because they're cool, because they're going to be this resistance and middle finger to the deep state. They're not. They're simply shills. Or now that they're in power, they're going to fucking comply with their own interests and the interests of their paymasters. Now, which one comes first? That's a question for you to answer.
And by the way, today we're going to cover it for nearly a full hour. But the media went out of its way. Let's just put 323 up there on screen again. All of these articles. So they won't cover the essence or the story of the Epstein story, but they'll cover the idea that somehow Charlie Kirk is moving on? Never was that ever said, and nor is that the truth. And guys, they heard us. Trust me, Student Action Summit was near complete messaging saturation.
I promise you, the geriatric in office did not hear a single word that was said. I'm going to show you right now exactly what is thought about you. There was no positive outreach to the geriatric in office and his puppet administration. There is no positive outcome as a result of your voices. This is merely a reflection of, if you don't align with the party, the hammer will come down. Although the hammer is very, very limited, but yeah, the hammer will come down. But the voice you claim that you think you guys had is not there. And even if you claim that, I don't even think you believe that, but the lie that you're trying to spread to your audience, don't let guys like this lie to you. They manipulate you, they distort, and they contradict themselves based on actions and words that they said before, during, and after. But guys like this, they don't actually care about the interests of the people. They care about themselves and the access they have to the administration that's in power. They don't want to lose their seat at the table, so therefore they will comply or fall in line whenever it's demanded of them. These guys will act just like the politicians they criticize. They will betray the people that built them up, gave them a foundation, and platformed them / elected them. When it comes to saving either their own skin, or for when it comes to their actual true ascension into the top elite ranks, or at least to sniff the seats of those elite ranks, like we see with Mr. Charlie Kirk right here.
Here's what I should have said, and what I was saying, and guess what? You say thousands of words on a talk radio program. Not all of them is as precise as you should have said.
I agree with the premises. I just don't agree as to what your explanation is as a result of that premises. It's a different case when you're just constantly contradicting yourself rather than misspeaking. There's a clear distinction there, and you contradict yourself and you manipulate and lie and distort and spread misinformation and disinformation. There's a difference there between that and misspeaking.
So this is what I was saying. Ball is in your court, guys. You are my friends. We got your attention overwhelmingly. Fix it. That is what I was saying.
Here he just continues to repeat himself and really emphasis on the fact that he was talking about something else. As far as Charlie Kirk's video goes, that's really it in terms of the substance of the video. He just continues to repeat himself and reiterate to the fact that he wasn't saying let's move on completely, that he was never going to talk about it again, and that he trusts his friends in the administration. And he goes on to say that he knows that the people will never let this story go and that they have this fire and intensity to them, especially with this subject, and that he feels like, the trust that he's gained with them shouldn't be lost. The problem is, you lost that trust with them the moment you started deflecting towards that direction. The moment you've also been insisting on Israel, calling them America's best ally. There's other situations that are being brought up, and there's a pattern that's developing for you. That's why they're calling you a Trump shill. That's why they're calling you a disingenuous interpretation and representation of the people. You don't represent the people that gave you a platform and audience. You don't represent them. You lie to them. And you claim that you're going to continue talking about this, but you're not going to talk about it to the extent that they want you to talk about it. You're probably going to cover a story here every now and then, give a little lukewarm centrist take, but you're not actually going to target or punish down on the administration like the people and the audience you've cultivated would want you and that you normally should. You just don't want to lose access to that chair. Guys like this should never influence your political compass. Guys like this are disingenuous, and guys like this will turn on you and spit on you for a sniff for anybody at the administration seat. Any of them. Guys like this are disingenuous. I feel like I could make countless videos on Charlie Kirk just lying and contradicting himself and being racist, dog whistling, all types of stuff. And you can make countless videos on Charlie Kirk for countless other things. When it comes to the Epstein case, I don't think it'll blow over. There's a chance it might somewhat blow over in the case that something else comes up to a similar magnitude. Not really at the same length, but in terms of another magnitude where it requires importance and vast coverage. But we'll see how this develops. There's 3.5 years left of term to come. Until then, we'll see how many more of these stories come up, because it seems like every other week there's another one. As I was editing the video, I came across this clip of Charlie Kirk really just demonstrating where his loyalties lie. This is a clip prior to the whole debacle with Trump and Epstein. So I'll show it for you real quick, and then I'll give my thoughts about it.
Now, 10 years later, we're supposed to believe there's going to be a smoking gun of something in the Epstein files. But what is in the Epstein files is, yes, President Donald Trump is probably mentioned. He was mentioned in the Epstein file dump back in February. You know why? He lived in Palm Beach. There's probably thousands of names in the Epstein files. Was he part of the Epstein client list? Absolutely not. That is complete nonsense. But to say that Donald Trump is not releasing the Epstein files because he's in them in some incriminating way, yes, it's very clear. that if you live in Palm Beach, you might have been mentioned and caught up in some sort of conversation with Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the most ridiculous piece of delusion you'll see out there. I genuinely think this man wants to believe Trump is a sort of idol and hero. I think today he was calling him the most masculine president we've ever had. Like, there's something wrong with people like this when it comes to idolizing such a hero. But we all know the extent of what Epstein and Trump's relationship was. They were best friends for years, according to Epstein himself. Trump was involved in many of his parties, his conferences, his businesses, his meetings, his events, him and Ghislaine Maxwell. This is not something that's obscure or hidden. So if you want to try to deflect it in terms of, yeah, they might have encountered each other maybe once or twice because they lived in the same vicinity, that's such a disingenuous downplaying of the extent of their relationship. There's proof beyond reasonable doubt. Trump has even held conversations with Maxwell, and they've even brought it down to a lesser security prison. We'll see many more instances of weird revisionism, not only from Trump himself, but from any independent media, social media, or mainstream media adjacent to the Trump administration. It's like what the party said. The party will rewrite history, and unfortunately, a lot of people do fall in line. Let me know what you think in the comments.